This week on Garden Time, we visit Portland Nursery in Portland, Oregon to see what types of plants you can add to your garden to give it a fresh look for the fall and winter. These plants will not only look good, they can also provide shelter and food for your local wildlife. All that and more coming up on Garden Time. Garden Time is brought to you by Capital Subaru in Salem, Oregon.
At Capital Subaru, we value your time, whether you're here for service or working with our amazing sales team. Everything is right here for your convenience. We offer a great selection of Subarus, an industry-leading service center that keeps you moving, and so much more. Like our living green wall, just one of the many features throughout our dealership. Looking for the perfect pet gift? Check out Happy Paws Pet Shop right here in our lobby. Or plan your next adventure in our fireside seating and find your happy place. It's always your time at Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.
Welcome to the Garden Time Podcast. We're based in the Pacific Northwest of the United States in a Zone 7 region. This deals with plants that can survive at approximately 0 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. I'm producer Jeff Gustin with your hosts Judy Alaruzo and Ryan Seeley. And welcome to the Garden Time Podcast, Garden Time Show. We are taking things outside our studio. We were talking about fall plants as an idea because we are a garden show, and so we're here at Portland Nursery on Stark. They also have their location on Division, and we're going to cover some plants. I'm going to step back, I'm going to step behind the camera, and I'm going to let them go to town. But first of all, thank you again to Capital Subaru in Salem. If you're ever in the neighborhood, stop by and say thank you at Capital Subaru for sponsoring us. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about why fall is a great time to plant. Because we keep on telling this to people over and over and over again. Let's talk a little bit from your perspective in the retail industry, why it's a great time to get.
Well, we have this wonderful thing called rain in the fall, which is coming really, really soon. And so the soil is just going to be perfect to get things in the ground. And we don't get that cold compared to other parts of the country. So the roots can just keep growing and expanding all through the winter. And then come spring, you have a much more established plant and it just like wakes up and explodes. And it's just a better, especially in drought tolerant places, it's a really good place to establish something.
There's a lot of things that are, you're talking about, it's a great time to plant. Are there things that we should be avoiding or not planting this time of year?
Or being mindful.
Yeah.
Broadleaf evergreens, things that are borderline hardy, like zone 8 kind of things. You might want to make sure you protect them or throw a garbage can over them during the cold spell that we get.
Yeah, because we don't want to promote putting something in the ground if there are things that maybe not the best idea, so it's good to kind of elaborate on that too.
Yeah.
But majority of like your broadleaf evergreens, perennials are
great.
definitely great items to get in the ground.
Yep.
And your fall annuals.
Right. And really, if people are watching that don't get fall rains, you got to make sure that you're watering in, because these are new transplants. And so for us too, our natural rain has been kind of spotty. So we're supposed to get rain, but if we don't, we're going to have to irrigate too.
Yeah.
And we've told people in other podcasts, we've told them over the years, we always measure the soil temperature in the spring because it heats up slowly. And here in the fall, it's going to cool down slowly, and that's why that soil stays warm enough for that root development, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to step away.
Okay.
I'm going to grab the other camera, and we will start going over some plants.
All right.
All right.
So Laura,
Yep.
you have, for those that can't see it,
Right.
You've picked out some great, cartloads of plants that are, looks like probably some of your favorites. And there's a lot of items in here that you don't typically see or typically think of for fall. A lot of us are kind of, spend our time in the garden center in the springtime.
Right.
But there is a whole palette of plants that, if you're not visiting your garden center or out this time of year, you maybe aren't aware of some of these really cool plants that you can put in the ground. So, let's start out. So let's kind of talk about this first cart. I kind of see a pattern of color choices.
Yes, definitely. There's a whole palette that you can do in your winter containers or in the ground. The whites they'll really pop against gray skies and kind of lighten up an area. This is a new ornamental cabbage called Crystal White. It's got an incredibly bright white center and dark green leaves with white veining. and it's just kind of it almost shines.
It does,
as
you know,
well.
because a lot of us are familiar kind of with the ornamental cabbages and ornamental kales, but this one does have a different look to it. It does have kind of a little bit of a glossier green on the foliage, and then that white on the inside is just like this pure white cabbage.
Yes.
So it's a pretty cool one. So is this something that you do in containers, or would you do it more in borders, or could you do both?
Either one.
Either one.
Yep, both would work great. So very versatile.
And then you have a really kind of interesting conifer.
Yes.
Here that has, there's silvers and there's whites. Which one? What's this?
This is Chamaecyparis lawsoniana pearly swirls. This one I would recommend for a container only.
Oh, really? Okay. And why is
Because
that?
it's a lawsoniana,
Okay.
and they're prone to root rot.
Oh, okay.
And so, they're really picky.
Especially here in the Northwest,
Yeah.
where we get rains for really long periods of time. In other parts of the country, or is it where you don't have saturation problems with water?
Where drainage is better, I think it would work
better.
But yeah, just and this one will want some afternoon shade. It'll burn in the hot sun.
Is that pretty true with a lot of things that have white variations?
A lot of the conifer, well, not necessarily. I'm looking at an azara behind us that loves the hot sun. So.
But as far as conifers go, it seems like sometimes some of the the goldens and the whites can get some burn if it's real hot.
If it's super hot, yeah.
Okay. And then how big does this guy get?
It gets, all right.
I'm going to put you on the spot here.
I know. Oh, thank you. So it gets 3 to 4 feet high in 10 years.
Okay, so it is a nice slower growth.
Yeah, but it's not going to stop growing.
Right. In 10 years, it doesn't. That kind of brings up a good point.
Yeah.
That I don't know if we necessarily talked about in time. People look at growth habits of plants. They see them on tags in the nurseries that say it will get to be this tall or this height. So in 10 years, then it does continue to grow.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, my semi-dwarf conifer is 15 feet tall.
Right. And so sometimes we'll plant things and it says it only gets 12 inches tall. But eventually, it's 2, 3, 4 feet tall. So how do we know when we're reading plant tags? How to judge that?
Right. Well, conifers specifically. I mean, I guess I know because I know how we write our tags, and we try and educate through our website as well that this is going to be this is your 10-year height, but it's not going to stop there. It'll just keep going.
And then there's a lot of factors that go into playing that too, as far as soil conditions, growing climates, sun, water, things too. So
yeah. So this one's kind of a nice blue-green feathery foliage with the cream accents on it. It would be like a great focal point in a partially shady container.
It has a really kind of that airy, wispy look, which is real pretty.
Yeah.
Then you have a couple other plants down here. There's some white blooming plants.
Yes.
That look really, really kind of nice with it. So what is this guy?
That's a lavender elegant snow. So it's a white blooming lavender. It won't be blooming in the winter, of course, but you'll have the silvery foliage. So another one that would be great in the container or in the ground.
And then it's just this one, it's blooming now and still has buds. Is this one that will started blooming earlier in the year and got a little haircut and it's coming back?
Exactly.
So you can get some repeat bloomer. And then this guy here also has some really cool silver foliage, but covered in really pretty red berries.
Red berries, yeah. Cotoneaster glaucophyllus. It's just, you could almost spill that over a pot,
right.
But you could also have it be this amazing ground cover that just billows out, and you'd have little berries to pick for arrangements in the winter.
Right.
And,
which is something to think about as we look into fall. What are some of the attributes we may look at? Because spring we're always so into flowers. You got a flower.
Yeah.
But there's more to a lot of these plants that we don't really necessarily pay attention to.
Exactly.
In the fall. And so berries is definitely one.
Food for the birds too.
Oh, that's another benefit to it. And then this guy, I just love these.
Oh, I know. Gara whirling butterflies, a powerhouse of bloom. It just goes and goes and goes and has that dancing movement in the little white. It's just such a fun.
Yeah, because it kind of gets real long, tall stalks that have flowers all along the stalk, and then you get a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So kind of like some of the ornamental grasses, but with a bloom. So you'll have that movement of flowing. And then, bloom time, the bloom power on these guys start late spring, all summer long.
Yeah.
Into fall.
And you don't see evening primrose family that often.
Right.
So how tall is that one again? Does that one get?
3 by 3.
A nice tall,
Yeah.
tall 3-footer. So it would be good, like as maybe at a focal point in a pot,
Focal
or
point.
in the back of a border.
Yeah, we also have it in the front of our border, and with gravity, it like swoops over and comes up in the parking lot.
And then another kind of a fun
Silver. You need to have plants you can pet in your garden. I mean, how can you not love it?
And what is this guy? Because it is so soft.
Yep. This is Stacky's Helen von Stein, or lamb's ear, and see, like you just.
Right, and it definitely is soft. It
Yep.
feels, very very soft, like it's like a lamb's ear.
It would be good for a therapeutic garden too, like where touch is important.
Oh yeah, sensories.
Sensories. Mm-hmm.
And then this guy, it is perennial, but it actually stays some foliage in the winter.
It does. Yeah.
So it doesn't die all the way down.
So you don't have to cut that one back.
You kind of tidy it up a little bit, like they'll get some green or yellow leaves, so you'll just tidy it up.
It looks like some of the older foliage in here. You could take some of the older stuff off, and there's filled with new foliage on the inside. Do you get a bloom?
This particular one, you don't. It's mostly, I think, it's mostly for the foliage. And this would make a great little tussy-mussy bouquet too. Like, just take a Stacky's leaf and you line it up around a miniature bouquet, and you can give somebody a bouquet that they can pet.
Oh, I like that idea. Yeah. Always, because that's what's kind of fun about some of these plants is thinking about other uses. So not just landscape plants, but what else can it provide?
Right. How can you share it and like make someone else happy?
And then you have another kind of fun one.
Yeah, Eupatorium, Joe Pieweed. A lot of it in the garden now is kind of spent, but it's got great seed heads. It's a really nice late pollinator plant.
Okay.
It gets great height with these tall, pink, fluffy flowers. Does like some water, so make sure it's not in a drought-tolerant garden.
Now I've seen some, this is called Joe Pieweed. And I've seen some in the landscape, they can be 6, 7, 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
Which are, stunning, but...
This is Baby Joe.
Okay.
So Baby Joe is a little bit shorter. What did I write? 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still a nice, because sometimes, they, unless you don't have the space, it can kind of get aggressive and take over a large
You're like, what did I plant? Oh no.
Yeah. So, so it's a great color palette, when you're trying to mix the colors. So, fall is, there's so much you can do with lots of different color patterns.
Yes.
And different textures. And the majority of what we're seeing now is a lot of foliage. And so we have a little bit of flowering just off the lavender and but it's not necessarily all about blooms this time.
It's not. This is one of my favorites for fall show and fall color. This is Oxydendron, or sourwood. You have this amazing red, and it's grading into green, and then you've got orange and bronze, so it's just like the cascade of colors is fantastic. And then you have these seed pods, which add like this dancing element that just makes it fantastic.
Right. And these will get to be kind of a large shrub,
small tree.
So not necessarily a single trunked item, but more of a low branched.
Right. It can be. I've seen single trunks in my neighborhood too, and it's really nice.
Great.
They're slow growing, so it's not going to be something that'll get out of control quickly or things.
Right. But the fall foliage it just glows. It's like, some like fire engine red.
Yeah.
Red color, and then you get the little tassels.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. We're going to take a little bit of a break here from Capital Subaru, and when we return, Judy and Laura are going to tackle a whole other card of wonderful plants. We'll be right back.
Start your new Subaru story at Capital Subaru. We are like nothing else in Oregon. From the moment you step through these doors, you see it, you feel it. We do things differently here. Our people, our culture, our customer experience. Tell us what you're looking for, and we'll upgrade the way you shop for Subarus. When you're just browsing, need great service, or starting your next adventure, we're always here for you. It's your story at Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.
And welcome back to Garden Time. We're at Portland Nursery on Stark Street, and we are talking about fall and winter interest plants. Now, some of these plants, and Laura here has been telling us, some of these plants are not just about fall color. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here that we're going to show you that sometimes is a little bit past their prime, but there's a reason for having it in the garden. So Judy's and Laura are going to take over this cart and fill us in on what's going on. So
now it's my turn, and this is a whole different color palette on this cart. So if you weren't into the whites and the greens from the other one, now we're into reds and golds and burnished bronze, and so really great collection here.
Thank you.
So I love this sourwood, and really that kind of blends itself into this cart. I mean, it can go anywhere, but really it'll pick up the colors that you picked in these plants.
Absolutely, yeah. The next one is Itea Little Henry, or Sweet Spire, a full sun plant that gets about, my memory says around 5 feet by 5. It has fragrant, cute little candle flowers in the spring, and now is it's time to shine. It just glows. It just goes on fire, and it's a fantastic, like, medium shrub for a sunny garden.
You know, it's so pretty because there's all different colors right on that shrubs. There's green still, there's burgundy, there's like kind of a bronzy. It's really, really nice. And then there's like the seed pods still from the flowers. So it's really attractive. And I think underused in the garden.
Yes.
Really underused.
It definitely is.
And then in front of that is a Hypericum shrub. It's a St. John's wort shrub, and really these have really been bred for berries.
Yes.
And it's just loaded.
Yes, this one's Midnight Glow. It's a new variety to me. I was just walking around, I'm like, ooh, you're going on the cart, you're fantastic. It's got a dark foliage and these bright red berries. And your new growth is gonna be fantastic in the spring as well. I think it's around 4 feet for full sun.
And it still has that same yellow flower that all Hypericums come in the spring. So really, it's a full season. Every season's going to have some kind of interest.
Absolutely.
Really nice. And I have one in my garden that it just gets kind of big for where it is. So I just trim it back in like March. And then it stays compact. It stays around its neighbors, and it still blooms. I still get the berries, and it's nice and fresh every year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's been really great.
They have lots of different berries, right?
Oh
I've
yeah,
seen
there's
colors of those.
ivory, there's orange, salmon, red, and then different colored foliage. There's some that are green, some are more burgundy. So really, there's something, and they're great in containers. Really nice.
Yeah.
For that fall effect. And you have dahlias, because everyone thinks it's October, our dahlias are done, but this is really a nice dahlia.
It's this is Mystic Haze, and it's going strong. I mean, I'm still picking them in my garden. I make bouquets every week. That's kind of my thing. And you need to deadhead dahlias. If they start setting seed, then they will stop blooming. So, oh darn, I have to make bouquets.
And this one's so nice because it doesn't have that regular green kind of foliage. It's much more delicate, almost ferny, and it's got dark burgundy stems and that burgundy blush on the foliage, and beautiful kind of yellowish and butterscotch blooms.
Yeah.
So pretty,
Nice.
daisy-like blooms.
Good contrast.
Very nice. It's just perfect for your cart here.
Yep. And if you're in a colder area, you'll have to protect this.
Oh, sure.
But here, it's fine in the ground, and it'll make it through the winter.
Yeah, just have good drainage for your dahlias.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then you have one down here, this shrub, that it's mostly a stem, but it still has some foliage.
Yeah.
So what's this with this crooked stem?
Yeah, Sorbaria, Sorbifolia Sem, S-E-M is the variety. We have one in our parking strip, and so it's probably around, what is that, like 3 to 4 feet right now, probably about 3 to 4 wide. And ours hasn't turned yet because it's in the ground. But in a container they turn, and you can see the texture of the foliage is just fantastic, and the fall color show is just really great. And you've got some seed pods on this one as well.
It is kind of a ferny foliage again, and it's green leaves in the summer, and then it's turning this kind of gold with burgundy.
Yep.
But I really love the texture of the stems.
Yeah.
It's really, sometimes I like the curly things and the curvy things much better when no leaves are on.
Yeah, you can see their structure really well. And this one's sun to part shade.
Nice.
Part sun. So.
Nice. So that has just a little twist to it, and it's got the buds on for next year already.
Ready
Really
to
pretty.
jump.
Yep. And then let's go to this kind of daisy-like flower. Which one is that?
Yeah, Rudbeckia Henry Eiler, so your black-eyed Susan, but not your everyday
No.
black-eyed Susan. This one's got amazingly fluted or quilled petals, or the ray flowers, and it's just, it makes me giggle just to see something a little different in the garden. Full sun, it can do light shade, and 30
I think this
inches.
one, yeah, it's up to 4 feet. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be taller, so middle of the border or so, or a bigger pot. But you know, I love like the gold sturm, which I think is the best, black-eyed Susan, but that is like in your face, bright gold. And this one's a little more delicate.
Yeah, yeah.
Very pretty. And this will just die down
This will
once
die
we get
down.
frost?
Yep, it'll turn yellow and die down, and you can cut it to the ground after that point.
All right, and let's talk about grasses. You have this
Grasses.
beautiful panicum here, Shenandoah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This one's a color changer, which it hasn't done yet. It's blue foliage right now, but it's going to take on some red tones in the
nice.
fall. So I really like that about the Shenandoah. We've been using the seed heads and cut floral a lot lately.
Oh,
So I mean,
nice.
just like that with the Rudbeckia was just like a great combo.
Pretty.
So yeah, full sun, about 5.
A little bit under. I think I'm looking at
4.
the tag up to like 3.5.
Yeah, so a dwarfer variety.
So what is your opinion though about grasses in the winter landscape or in your containers? What do you do or what you recommend?
I leave them up. I like the structure in the winter. I mean, just because it's herbaceous, I can still have something in my garden in the winter. Also, I feel like if you're cutting grasses, they have tubes. Their stems are literally tubes, so I worry about too much rain
Sure.
going into the tubes and causing them to rot.
Yeah. I always leave mine up too because I think it's interesting. You get cobwebs in them or frost, and it's kind of beautiful in the winter landscape.
Yeah.
And then I think insects, I know we're always trying to get rid of insects, but they kind of winter over. They need some place to kind of hide.
That's true.
So I kind of leave my grasses up too.
And there's that beautiful sound that grass makes
Yes.
when the wind comes through, especially in the winter.
Yes.
And the flowers, the flower heads on grasses don't always look the greatest, but it's just that they create such a statement. in the garden, don't they?
Yeah. No, that is true. And then, yeah, talking about motion, pampas grass plumes.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And you know, their dried flowers are back again, so you
Yes.
need these for your dried flower arrangements.
More floral
Now,
fixative.
that one there, you'd have to leave a lot of room.
Yes, yeah, they
Yes.
get 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
Unless
the-
you get a dwarf,
Yeah.
but they still get sizable. They are evergreen, which is nice. They also, you want to make sure you wear very long sleeves whenever you're dealing with them because they're like razor blades.
They are, yeah. And don't put them right by a path.
Yeah.
I've seen them cut back. They use them a lot on golf courses.
Golf courses,
Yes.
yeah.
And they cut them to the ground in early spring, right?
Yep.
And then they just grow from there, right?
Yep. I always know when to tell people to cut them when I see the golf courses have done that. Well, let's go back to shrubs now.
Yep.
And this one is just so eye-catching.
Oh, one of my favorites. I've got 3 at home.
Oh, which one is this?
Abelia kaleidoscope, and you can kind of see why. There's like a gazillion colors going on here all at the same time. You've got your pink new growth, the leaves are gold with green in the middle. Then you have the calyces from the flowers, which look like flowers, but they're not. And you also have the actual flower, which is white. And it's a really versatile fold apart sun. I mean, the more sun, the better for the structure.
Okay.
And
See
it just
the height
keeps
on
going.
it.
3
2
to
to 3,
4.
yeah, 3 to 4 wide. So it's going to get a little wider
Yeah.
than tall. And you know, it's so interesting because you have all this going on and it's still flowering.
Yeah.
We always think of abelias as spring blooming, but this is gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a powerhouse.
Really nice. I think for containers this time of year, and once it gets too big for containers, put it in a landscape or give it to a friend. But really, just a beautiful statement for the fall.
Yeah.
And then, almost missed this one, this little guy here. That's so fragrant. I
Yep.
wish we had smell-o-vision.
Right. The oregano kirigami, it's the new version of Kent Beauty. So again, I cut and dry the Kent Beauty all the time. It works in floral arrangements and garlands and It's just a really fun kind of edge of the border, sunny border. It can do a little bit of shade.
Oh, okay.
But like edge of the border, kind of softening the edge, and it's a nice late bloomer. It's like, when's it gonna go? When's it gonna go?
Right.
Oh, it's going now!
Right,
Yay!
right. And the flowers are just kind of a pinkish green, and they're just very subtle. It almost looks like foliage, but it's the edges on it. So it's just really pretty, that soft kind of pink.
Yep, and they're like hops.
They do
clusters.
look like hops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is beautiful. You just have
You've seen those in hanging baskets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trailing.
really
Do
nice.
the same thing?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
because you're always looking for something different for a hanging basket. And you know, echinaceas have been the belle of the ball for the summer garden, but really they have some life in the fall garden too.
They do. The seeds are great for attracting birds and things. You can see they're kind of falling apart, but that's why I pulled this one, because seed heads add such interest to the winter garden and a lot for wildlife too.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. I mean, this one is called Poco Hot Coral. You can kind of see the last of the flower petals, but really any echinacea I would leave up, this last bloom up, so that the birds can have the seeds.
Yep, and definitely full sun for those guys, and decent drainage is important.
Other flowers that we should leave up for birds?
Eryngiums.
Eryngiums, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
And millet, I know last
Yep,
week we
millet.
talked about millet on the show.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah. So
yeah.
even, you know, it's pretty for ornaments, but also for the birds. And here we
Now
look
we're
like we
going
have
into pink.
pinks. But I think they play well with all these.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of contrast to it.
Absolutely. So heathers are just like a fantastic, there's a whole gamut of them. And pinks and whites are their general color palette. And then you can have some gold foliage. I thought this was really interesting. It's, I forget the species, TET is our abbreviation, hookstone pink. So 8 inches by 14. It does need good drainage. Great in containers. I've had a heather spill over a container and get to be extremely long.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's very nice.
It was really fun.
And I think, you know, if you don't like boxwood, this would be kind of an interesting thing to do, a kind of edge a garden if you want a more formal look.
Yeah.
Because you do shear them back after they bloom, so, but that is really cute.
The blue foliage with the pink, like dusky pink bells is
Really
just a really
nice.
fun one.
And then you have to tell us about this one because it's got a good story.
It does. I had to choose a Persicaria because we were just at Chris's garden who breeds Persicarias. So I'm like, oh, they're coming. They'll get why I pulled this.
This one is called Darjeeling Red, and it's kind of a deep pink flower. The foliage is kind of more ground hugging,
Yeah.
but then the flowers kind of sit up a little bit.
Yeah, so it's like a fast ground cover
Yeah.
for sun to light shade.
For a bigger property, and that's what this guy, he was also a landscape architect, and he had these large swaths of them, and it was just so dynamic to see it like that. It
Yeah.
was really attractive.
Definitely.
And then we have these two little cute ones.
You gotta
These
go for
are new.
adorable.
Look at that.
I know.
Those are really unique.
Yeah, the Saxifrage Dancing Pixies series. They've started, I actually saw it a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and now they've started separating out the colors, so you're
cool.
seeing a lot more selection. Yeah, I mean, how can that not? It's like dancing, you know, the
do.
flowers are
Yeah,
dancing above the
definitely.
foliage. We've got bright pink on the Taja, and we've got like a lighter, rosier pink on Tony.
Yeah. One's a little shorter flower stems, and the other one's taller. And then, where do you put saxifrage like this?
This one's a zone 8.
Okay.
So this is where I would want to make sure it's going to be I could protect it if we get one of those events in the winter. So maybe a container that I can move under the porch or something, or stuff it under the taxus in the front yard that'll keep it protected for a weather event.
Nice, nice. But it is so cute, and it's like there's other saxifrage that are more hardy, and you know, you can always research those. But these are just so cute, like a little color spot. Instead of a pansy, maybe put one of these.
And having a different color in fall in a flower has just been a delight.
Right. And I think that we were talking off camera a little bit about discovering all these, because it's like if you don't come to a nursery or garden center this time of year, you are going to miss all of these cool plants because really you don't have them all the time.
Right, yeah. I mean, our gardens are so seasonal, so shopping for them is really important. The first garden I ever did when I was working here, I went out in winter and I looked at my gorgeous border. It was just fantastic. I'm like, but there's nothing here in the winter. So it was just like an eye-opening experience. And so then I would start walking around I'm like, what can I put in the winter?
Oh, for sure.
So,
You can almost get color year round.
Definitely.
You
Look
can.
at this,
with
yeah.
bloom color or foliage color.
yep, twig color.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I didn't pull any of the twigs.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Well, we hope everybody enjoyed. Can you see me in there? It's weird when I get in front of the camera. So these are really beautiful plants, and this is just a small selection that people can find at the local garden centers and Division and Stark.
Right.
And so for those that are not in the Oregon area, check with your local garden center. Some of these will be available, some will not, but I'm sure they'll have plenty of other colors there too. Any parting thoughts about fall and winter color? Because we did talk about even past their prime, plants can serve a wonderful purpose. Any final thoughts?
I think that putting in a plant that maybe you have a spot for, come to the nursery. Maybe look outside your window, like where you are in the wintertime, maybe at your kitchen or at your dining room, and maybe just kind of look out. Maybe there's a hole right there and you need to put something in. I think that we forget that we're not in our gardens, but we still view our gardens.
Right.
And I think as we assembling and doing new things in different pots and different containers, as we tear summer things out and we have these holes, fall is a great time to put things in there.
Yeah.
And Laura, is there anything, as we are redoing pots or containers and going from fall into winter into spring that we need to pay attention to certain things in pots, or like perennials and shrubs that are in there?
Right.
Just leave them in? Or?
Just leave them in. You'll be replacing your annuals, like the impatiens are finishing, and you can put in the pansies and the violas. We'll see primroses soon, or the cabbages and kales and things would all be great replacements for those.
And a lot of these you can, when you're done, eventually they're going to get too big for the pot, right?
Yeah.
So then what do we do with these
Well,
amazing plants that we've nurtured along for over the years?
do you
and
have
they've
room in the
outgrown-
ground, or does a friend want it, or?
Right, because that's they just get bigger and fuller and nicer. There's nothing wrong with them, but it gives you an opportunity to refresh.
Yes,
There you go.
There you go.
And we were talking earlier about refreshing, about these plants, most of them on the tags, they are grown for a certain time period, as you mentioned earlier. So 10 years for, some of the conifers and stuff. Gardens are transitory.
Yes.
So you can always take them out and put new plants in because they're coming up with new plants all the time, right?
Right, and we need to have a spot for them.
That's right. And sometimes the newer varieties are wonderful additions. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching and listening. We want to thank Capital Subaru again for sponsoring the podcast and the video. And thank you to Portland Nursery and to Laura for being with us today. And hopefully we'll do more of these on location kind of things. So thank you very much and happy gardening.
At Capital Subaru, we value your time, whether you're here for service or working with our amazing sales team. Everything is right here for your convenience. We offer a great selection of Subarus, an industry-leading service center that keeps you moving, and so much more. Like our living green wall, just one of the many features throughout our dealership. Looking for the perfect pet gift? Check out Happy Paws Pet Shop right here in our lobby. Or plan your next adventure in our fireside seating and find your happy place. It's always your time at Capital Subaru, your way on the Parkway.